Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of Banter Blitz with yours truly, Jan Gustafsson. I am a chess grandmaster, even though, you get that title for life. I'm a chess grandmaster, highly qualified to crush all of you. And that is normally the intention of these shows. Challenge me to a 3-minute or a 5-minute game if you are a premium member on chess24.com. And we shall maybe play a game and talk about it. I also do think that these shows will provide a lot of study material for hospitals for the criminally insane in the future. Well, they're gonna say, in 2015 he seemed to have it more or less together. Look at the early Banter Blitzes. They're even mildly humorous for a chess player. But then 2016 is the year he turned really bitter, invented this fake character Radio Jan, and his shows as himself just a load of whining, self-pitying, thinly veiled insults. So enjoy this, Doctors of the Year 2030, and let's get on with the program. I didn't really work on that introduction. Should have. Let's play somebody. But who? What about Bugoni or Bugoni? I'm not sure if the E is silent like the D in Django. Probably it's silent. Bugoni? What does that even mean? From the USA. So depending on where you are, it's probably still morningish. It's morningish on the west coast and 11ish on the east coast. We play what people call the Pirts Ufimtsev. Ufimtsev? Probably people just call it the Pirts. A lot of debate how you pronounce Pirts. Pirts, Perch, Pirk. But I believe Pirts is correct. And I'm going with the Austrian attack. 3-pawn attack, f4, bishop g7, knight f3. Has some people that think bishop d3 instead of knight f3 is a clever move. Or even a3. But I'm not that subtle. Castle, what do you do here? Bishop e3 or bishop d3? That's pretty much the options. I shall put my bishop here, and after knight a6, castle c5, d5, we will reach the main line of sad variation. And it is a bit of a sad variation, even though I do believe that black has kind of decent counterplay here. It's better than what you would normally get out of these g6, c5 setups, because the white pieces are a bit clumsy for it. Knight c3, bishop d3. I played queen e1 to cover the e4 square, e4 pawn even, in case he goes b5 and my pieces get distracted here. And also to start this, what I call the, I don't know what I call it. Let's say a less than subtle attack with f5, queen h4, bishop h6 and knight g5. Arguably, and maybe not even arguably, I should have started with queen h4, not with f5. Not to give him any options of gf and taking the pawn on d5. But I have a feeling that Bugoni, who's that in his profile picture? It's hard to tell, it's so small. I have a feeling Bugoni is not going to take this, so I can proceed with my caveman approach. If he had taken it, his king would have ended up very exposed, so I'm not sure that was a good idea. Now, this is the only attacking plan that Lawrence Trent is familiar with. You go bishop h6, followed by knight to g5, followed by something. And rightly, Bugoni seeks counterplay on the other side of the board by playing b5. I'll ignore it. Rule of thumb is if you're weaker on one side, don't do too much there. Is that the rule of thumb? Not sure. Knight h5 stops me from brainlessly executing my moves. Knight g5, rook f3, rook h3. Asks me to do something. I believe it's consistent to exchange bishops. Having said bishop h6, might as well say bishop takes g7. Knight takes g7. Now it seems logical to jump here as well. Threatening checkmate with queen h7. h5 is the only good defense I can see. But Bugoni plays h6. The problem with h6 is my queen is coming. It's coming closer. My best guess is this was a mouse slip. I'm not 100% sure. But now, he's in big trouble because queen h7 cannot be stopped. h5 was the only chance when after fg, fg, e5. I had the feeling my attack was probably crushing through, but it did not happen. Let's see what's going on here. And Bugoni does indeed resign. Very hard to stop the mate for more than a move. After rook e8, queen h7, followed by queen h8. Let's find a new game. It's gonna be hard though. What about... just click somebody. A lot of challenges, which is great to see. Chose a dude with a very, very long name. It doesn't even fit all the screen. El Demonio de los Andes, which probably means the devil from the... what do you call these mountains in English? Ants? It's not the devil of the ants. I don't think there is a devil in ants culture. But instead it's these mountains, and it's well documented. I know zero about geography, so I shouldn't even... Where are the Andes? Are they in... Can I move this? Yeah. I believe they're in Peru, but I could be very wrong. And I was also very wrong to play the move to c5, because after d5 I don't really know what I'm doing here. And I don't like it much to give white this extra space. I was so confused with what Andes is in English. I'll find out. Andes. The Andes. How to pronounce? The Andean Mountains is the alternative. Let's go with that one. I played b5, which is sort of logical having gone c5. After bishop g5, there's some old theory here with either knight e4 or queen b6. I never really liked any of those lines for black, but they're at least supposed to lead to an unbalanced game with a lot of pieces on the board. So sometimes sharper players than myself, or players trying to play for a win, are doing this. d6, whoa, never seen d6. Devil de los Andes is going for it. Interesting move, actually. If queen d6, queen takes d6, ed, bishop f6, gf, knight c3, does look like a lot of compensation. So I don't want that. I could either go e6, and I think I should go e6. Yeah. Ed, same thing, bishop f6, followed by knight c3. I don't control that. And d5 square, so that seemed too risky. Well, after e6, the plan is to pick up this bishop without this pawn, without compromising my structure all that much. Bishop f4, knight e4 could be possible, then followed by bishop takes d6. I guess he should probably try knight to c3, trying to make something happen. But I also have a good feeling about my position there. I'll think about what to do after knight c3, should it happen. Possibly a6, because of bishop d6, then there's bishop takes f6 and knight takes b5. Let's say knight c3, a6, bishop f6, gf. Well, same story. If he goes knight c3 here, a6, knight e4, f5, knight f6 check, king d8, knight g5. I'm rambling, I'm guessing, but it was interesting. Instead he goes g3, but as far as I can see, now I can just take the pawn without any particular punishment. After bishop g2, bishop b7 to shore up this diagonal. I guess white doesn't quite have enough compensation for the pawn he gave me. My structure is pretty solid, it's true. My king does not have completely self-shelter anywhere. Then again, it's not that unsafe, even in the center of the board at the moment. I do have the two bishops and this massive extra pawn. Well, it's not massive, but it's an extra pawn to use in the future, so I quite like my position here. El Demonio de los Andes, the devil from the Andean mountains, is trying to make things a little more murky. That's hard to do. He doesn't have that much firepower. I'll go... I'm not sure about f5 actually. Because it allows e4 establishing a bit more contact than maybe I should have asked for. And El Demonio de los Andes, I won't tire of saying that name, does go for e4. Devious. I'll take. Let's take first, think later. The usual approach to chess and life. Yeah, this was dumb. This was seriously dumb. Things have gotten a lot more complex than they had to be. The problem is of bc4, which looks natural, and he has knight d6 check. And I'm not all that fond of it. I'll castle, but now my king is really a bit exposed. Tactical point I hope is that queen d7 doesn't work because of rook a8, but a move like queen d2, opting for the h6 square. And yeah, I'm not very pleased with what I've done to myself and my position here. What's going on in the chat? Sometimes I catch up with the chat during the shows. Sometimes I don't. I am like a box of chocolates. That was weird. That sounded weird. Queen d2, yeah, I'm not thrilled. To put it mildly. Don't checkmate me, Mr. El Demonio de los Andes. I'm not overly keen on getting checkmated. I should focus a little bit. I spotted, well, there's many weaknesses to my game, but being under attack is actually one of them. I don't enjoy enemy pieces all up in my grill. Can I do this? Knight takes d4, cd, bishop b7, queen b7. Let's say knight f3 or cb. No, sorry, knight f3 is hanging. He can't do that. But I still don't like it. Knight d4, cd, c5, queen c7, even c6. It all looks very dangerous. I will win on time, because El Demonio de los Andes is devious, but he's slow. He likes to take his time to torture his victims, as a mountain devil probably should. But there's rules to our little chess24 world, Mr. Devil. You have to respect them. We use the chess clock, and if you run out of time, no cunning in the world can help you. I do not know. A lot of questions in the chat. Some people would say too many questions, and I have all my hands full. Keep them coming, but I probably won't answer them. This is what I'm saying, because I have my hands full fighting off El Demonio over here. Knight f3, I actually have a feeling that I should get rid of this knight, because it's very jumpy. It could jump to e5. Well, the opposite color bishops, I have a bit more control. Now my bishop will go to f6, give my king all the shelter it can. And things are more or less under control, I would guess. I'll even take here and now play bishop f6, not to allow rook takes c8 and then queen h6 when this bishop would be loose on this very square. Drawback is, of course, that I relinquished control of the c-file. But you can't have everything. You can't have your cake and eat it. Does that make any sense? Not a lot. Queen c5, so aggressive. Do I want to give the pawn back? Wanna is a bit strong. Might have to. Nah, you know what? I shall make a bunch of very anti-positional moves just to keep this pawn alive. Very persistent about getting his pawn back, El Demonio de los Andes. Not gonna be able to do it. Now he is in serious time trouble, as I predicted. It might happen with all these slow play. There was, yeah, a bit of a dare that I would blunder the bishop to pre-move rook takes d6. Didn't happen, and yeah, the clock was not his friend there. Still a very good game by El Demonio de los Andes, who scared me. Thank you for playing. Let's play yet another eventful game, hopefully. What about Christian Crun? Is that the name? Christian Crun? Sorry if I mispronounced that badly. He goes 1 e4, and why not play the Caro-Kann? There's a bunch of reasons, like you don't fight for space in the center instantly, and it's a little dull. But it's a fully functional, fully playable opening that leads to unbalanced positions. I'm generally quite fond of it, because it's positionally sound. Now, after knight c3, which is a bit of a weird move, but we've transposed into a position you would, I'm not sure if you guys will follow me on this, a position you would normally get after d4, knight f6, knight c3, d5, knight f3, c5, e3, cd, ed. Nah, that was a bad example. Just ignore what I just said. We have a, how do you call this? Karlsbad structure with colors reversed. That should be very comfortable for black because the knight is a bit misplaced on c3. Every move that doesn't blunder the bishop made sense here. Bishop f3, bishop f5, and bishop h5. Bishop h5, he goes knight e5, which might help him to untangle his pieces a bit, especially this knight on c3. Well, bishop f5 does have the drawback that he can go knight h4, trapping this bishop. Frankly, I did not expect Christian Crun to do that to me, but he did. I misread him. And now, while black is still fine, it's gonna be a bit harder to create imbalances, but I shall try. He played bishop b5 and bishop g5, pinning all my horses. Now he's gonna capture them all, but with all these captures, he's gonna strengthen my pawn chain a little bit, because capturing towards the center often improves your pawn structure. Long castles is pretty much off the table after b takes c6, so I might as well play rook b8. To b3, not sure what to do. I don't really consider bishop f6 a threat after gf. I guess I'm gonna have to put my king here eventually. Where else would it go? So I shall castle and see what happens. Queen f3, hit the knight on f6, so it is high time to remove it from there. When, yeah, once again, my position is pretty good. c5 is going to be on the agenda. Sometimes e5 is possible. Plays bishop h4, which is kind of sensible, preparing bishop g3. And I do think this is a good time to keep Christian Crun busy by opening the c-file. After dc5, I could go queen takes, hoping to gang up on the c2 pawn. The most natural move, though, seems to be knight takes. After queen takes, you can play rook c1, for example, and it doesn't look like I'm winning material yet. So I'll go knight takes, intending to play rook fc8 and make things happen. Bishop g3 is sensible, but it slightly weakens his pawn structure, because now he has to capture away from the center after either fg or queen g3, which I would take queen g3 and then fg. Because these pawns, yeah, note, they're much weaker than having gone h takes g6, because that strengthened my control of the center, while f takes g3 softens white's control of the center. You can't access the e3 square anymore. The e6 pawn all of a sudden is a passed pawn, and so on and so forth. Good move, this Rook fc1, defending the c2 pawn before I move my knight away. But still, a slightly thankless endgame for Christian, who's played very well, but he has to suffer because of his inferior pawn structure. Knight e4, just preparing rook c6. To do it now? I could also start with e5. I like this move better, fighting against the white knight. I don't want rook c6, knight d4, and the knight gets a little too jumpy. Knight rook c3, and I have to think about stuff like knight b5 and so on. So e5 is, just to restrict this knight and to prepare rook to c6. Here we go. When, the white position is not very pleasant. Once again, my extra central control that the pawn structure grounds me is very, very useful here. d4, now d3 is a threat. It's not a nice position to play. He goes c4, which is actually not a bad decision, I believe. I am aware of the en passant rule. I could use that knowledge by going d takes c3 en passant. It's not a no-brainer, however. I could also try to target the b3 pawn, but no, I believe I should take this dc. The problem is now after rook ac2, he has a bit of a blockade, which should not last forever, but it is in place at the moment. And I still have to find a way to break it. I'll go a6 just to stop this pawn from advancing too far. If I ever want to go rook c5, b4, rook c4, for example, this could be a useful thing to have. And I also thought it was quite hard for white to improve his position. Here, for example, king f1 has the drawback that I can go knight d2 check, king e1, knight takes b3. And he's not in time to take on c3 because the knight hits the rook on c1. If this rook goes somewhere, can go knight d4 or knight takes a5 with a pretty decisive advantage. It does look like that is what's going to happen. I'll just take. What's gone is gone. And I don't have to worry about it anymore. Now I am, 3 pawns up, which should be enough. Between you and me, I'm pretty good with 3 extra pawns, even though I'll probably lose one of them. I could try to keep all pawns with knight d2. Do I need to? Knight d4 leads to a fairly winning rook endgame. Anything wins. Isn't that the hardest positions of all? Nah, it's not actually. The hardest positions of all are the ones where nothing wins. When everything wins, it's probably the easiest positions of all. You just have to make choices. I went with knight d2, just going for some cheap pawns with knight e4. Not willing to part ways with Mr. c3 just yet. After we've just gotten reacquainted after all these years. Yeah, Christian is in big trouble here. King e3, the natural move, would run into knight c4 with the fork. Well, knight takes c3, runs into knight e4. After knight takes e4, there's rook takes c2. Well, after king e3, there's knight takes c3. And now my material advantage has reached proportions that are beyond repair. Therefore, Christian Crun resigns. Thank you for that game. Another chess game, why not? What about Mr. Hyde? I do hope that he will stay Mr. Hyde for this game, because I have a feeling that Dr. Jekyll is stronger at chess, like more methodical, more thoughtful. Well, Mr. Hyde is probably a bit out of control and therefore easier to counter his chess antics. I've played the Trompovsky, and Mr. Hyde blitzes out what is considered by many, me included, the most solid reply, the move to d5. To e3 goes e6. Most theory nerds play the move c5 there, but of course nothing wrong at all with the move e6. When well, it depends a bit on the coming moves, what the structure is gonna be. White can decide to play sort of colle, or no, what do you call this? I don't even know what you call this. Torre, I believe you call it Torre opening, which I've done with knight bd2. Or I could have played an earlier c4, steering the ship back towards Queen's Gambit T waters. Now that he's played a5, I will actually play c4. Wasn't really in my plans, but after a5 things change a bit, because after dc, which normally I thought was a good reply to c4, knight takes c4, and let's say c5. Now there's many weaknesses on the queen side created by a5 that I could tackle. Therefore, it felt like it was a decent adjustment to the situation. I could be wrong though. There's also a 3-minute game. So once again, the story with these strong players, they like to challenge me to 3-minute games because it gives me less time to wax lyrical about my many thoughts and play well. I can't blame them. I do blame them though. b3 I'm already not sure about it. I have a feeling something's gone a little wrong here. My queen is not doing great on that c file. Yeah, now my pieces are a little uncoordinated. And frankly, with the symmetrical structure, you could argue that my a4 b3 construction is just as weak as his. Because knight f8, that's a bit of an odd move. Well, I guess the idea is knight e5, knight ft7, and nothing too bad has happened really. I have to admit. I'll take here, now that my bishop is covered, as good a point as any to alter the structure, and ed5 might have been a little careless. He forgot about his bishop on a6. That's what I said initially about Mr. Height. Not as methodical as Dr. Jekyll. But seriously, he of course had to play bishop takes d3, knight takes d3, and now ed, when I had some hopes to be better because of these potential hanging pawns. There's still absolutely everything to play for. Well, yeah, that was a bit of a blunder. Thanks for the game, Mr. Height from Argentina. Shall we play another game of chess, maybe? Maybe we should. Oh, some challenges by non-premium here, which I can't accept. Sorry, guys. A lot of non-premium challenges. I'm sorry, but I am a chess player, and therefore I will prove that this is chess, not checkers. And checkers player, not surprisingly, in chess he only has a rating of 1,000. But I've never played him, and on this show we do not discriminate according to the rating of the opponents. It's a bit of a service for the Chess24 premium members as well, that they get a chance to play a strong, experienced grandmaster like yours truly. Therefore, apologies if you came here for more bloodshed. I'm aware I'm a favorite against a player rated 1,000, but they're as entitled as anybody to partake in the show. He plays d5. I'm sticking with the Trompowsky theme, and I will once again play e3. Let's see if he settles on e6 as well, or if he plays the main move c5, or something entirely different. Knight e4 is a move, bishop f4. There is a lot of options here for black. Checkers player is probably trying to... I can't even play checkers. How do you play? Knight e4 looks like a checkers move, right? Jumpy. But no, he goes e6. Maybe he's seen the last game, and he thought, you know what? This guy got a decent position. If Mr. Height can do it, I can do it too. So I will slightly change my ways to confuse checkers player. But I'll try to set up a checkers position against him and put this pawn on f4. Which is another way you can play, especially if you haven't played knight f3 yet, obviously. You can go for some fake stone wall with f4, where the bishop is already out of the pawn chain. Which normally sounds a bit better than it is in practice. There's tend to be drawbacks to this early f4. Sometimes you're vulnerable to g5, sometimes you're vulnerable to a quick queen b6. So there is problems with it, but it's certainly an option that white still has. After throwing in, let's say, knight d2, and then f4 next. But I'll go f4 immediately, first of all, because I've talked about it so much. Also, because I'm not sure if after knight d2, e6 to e5 could be a move. So I'll try to create this stonewall position with knight d2, knight f3. then eventually get full checkers position by playing a3 and g3. I believe that's how you arrange your pieces in checkers, right? I really don't know how to play, but I believe they're always organized like that. cd makes it very hard for me to get checkers position. In general, in the stone wall you're supposed to recapture with the e-pawn, even though currently my pawn on f4 lacks support, so it's not a no-brainer to go for this ed, because after bishop d6 or queen c7 I have to do something slightly clumsy to cover this pawn. Like knight e2, which is not really my first choice for where to put this knight. Or knight h3. I think I'll go knight h3 actually. And then maybe bring the other horsey around to e5. We'll see if checkers player allows me to. But knight h3 looked a little more natural than knight e2, where it's just blocking squares for the queen. Now I can follow up with castle, queen e2, knight g2, whatever. I have many big plans for the future. He goes queen c7, attacks f4 once again. But I saw that coming and I can castle. Knight h5! I was just about to praise you, checkers player, but then knight h5 is one step too far, because this is chess, not checkers. And in chess our queens can go all the way and capture loose knights. Knight e4 looked like a stronger move, for example. g6, I can probably take this if I want to go for a quick end. And why not? I have watched the movie This Is the End numerous times, so I do consider myself a bit of a self-taught expert on the topic. fg, queen g6, king f8, and then something's gonna give f5, e5, f6 probably. Things should end badly for Mr. Checkers player. Now fe6 is a lethal threat because of the discover check. Once again, this was a checkers move though, right? And therefore checkers player resigns. The end is near. Bishop f4, queen f7 checkmate. Or if I was more of a show-off, which let's face it I am, e7 checkmate. Slightly prettier. Yeah, he played well until this unfortunate move, knight to h5. That pretty much ruined the game. Who's next? Who's in? Who not? What about Alan Safar from France? Let's play against Mr. Alan. I'm white every game today, which is beautiful. It's not a setting. It's, I believe, random. But I'll take it. And I played knight f3 against Alan, knight f3, c4. It's probably still my default mode. Even though one d4, I do just as often. b6, here one could play dullish, which of course is my choice, or one could play slightly more enterprising with the move e4. After bishop e7, I'll actually play d4. There's also many credible setups with other lines, and he goes knight e4. Good move. Alan Safar knows what he's doing. Many ways to meet this knight e4. Typically queen c2, knight takes c3, followed by whatever. Bishop f6 is one way, and bishop d2 is the other. Here after f5, I'm not sure. It's probably common as well. I have a feeling I have a moral obligation to grab some space in the center before he's fully developed. I have a hunch all of this is still theory, but frankly, I do not know. We'll find out. Queen c2, rook c1 also look natural, just stopping him from doubling my pawns. After knight takes, now that I've moved my queen already, I should go knight takes d2. He can play bishop c3, but then queen c3 looks quite pleasant for me. If he goes e5, I was hoping that queen takes f5 is legal. I know it's legal, but I was hoping it's good. Therefore, I was not quite sure how black wants to proceed here. Queen e7 would be a friendly move, because then after d6 I win material. And he is my friend today, Alan Safar. I understand the thought process. He wanted to cover this e6 pawn, so he could proceed with d6 or bishop takes c3 followed by e5 or whatever, but d6 is a typical tactic to watch out for in these positions, and he does lose the bishop. Sorry, Alan Safar. Let's find another game of chess, or chess game as some people like to say. What about oh, I think this was a time control I don't normally play. I read too late. Horam Chess. 4 minutes plus 2 seconds. Yeah, that's too slow. And how am I gonna win if I can't flag you? It's 4 plus 2. Yeah, I don't like this time control, but I do like the Trompovsky theme. I'll just play Trompovsky all the way today. And it looks like 2 d5, which I also consider the best move. Is the only move anybody plays today. Interesting. To e3. This guy goes g6. Horam Chess. How do you pronounce that? Horam? I don't know. Horam Redemption? No idea. But it does look like in this structure, normally after c4 you're supposed to take on c4. Well, now I've been allowed to create this weakness on d5, and I'm greedy. I'll just try to grab it instantly. My first instinct, and probably my more sane instinct, was to first target it by g3, bishop g2, and then pick it up in due time. But why do on move 10 what you can do on move 9? Not sure that's good chess advice. But I went after the pawn instantly when he could not defend it. Now I am a fairly healthy pawn up. Black does have the 2 bishops, but they're not a main factor here. And his lead in development is not that big. Still, always gotta be careful. Now, this is a threat. So, I think I'll put the bishop here. Knight b4. He's actually, doing well to make me work for consolidating my pawn. Now knight d3 is on the agenda. I'll go rook b1, dare him into finding a good knight jump. And he doesn't believe in one knight b4. I was going to go e4. So I plays bishop e6, but bishop e6, this feels very wrong. And also feels like Mr. d3 is now far away from home. So I will, as you do, if you spot somebody who's far away from home, you try to cut off their way home and trap them in your own camp. That's good life advice too. So I don't think this knight has any squares, therefore rook takes d3 is gonna be painful. Knight takes b2, rook b2 is also not really worth doing. Therefore, Horam Chess's horse got trapped in a chess game. And yeah, it's time to say goodbye. Horam Chess is desperately looking for a way out, but there is no such thing. Therefore, he does resign. Thanks for the game, Horam Chess. And sorry for bungling your name multiple times. Can you use bungling there? I'm not sure. What about Shakhzala? Another noob. Or, I don't know, noob, but another guy I've never played against. Good to see some new faces here. Or maybe it's this new policy. Not really of mine, but I believe the Banter Blitzes are more visible on Chess24 now. So you can actually prepare mentally, rearrange your schedule, leave work early to partake in these exciting shows once you see that one is coming up. And we played the Catalan. What do I... Normally I play dc4 against the Catalan and then whine about my bad position. I also play a lot of bishop e7, which is what my video series on the Catalan is based on. For this game, why not give a check? Because if you were to play 3 checks win, then I would already be leading 1-0 here. Seriously though, there is a lot of logic to the madness of going bishop b4 check and then bishop e7, forcing this bishop to d2, where in many lines it's placed worse than on c1, because from c1 after b3 bishop b2 has a very natural place to go, while on d2 normally it has to move again to go to f4 or b3 bishop c3 knight b2, all kinds of possibilities, but nothing very satisfying. Rook e1 is not the most typical move. I believe rook d1 or b3, or even knight c3, bishop f4 are more logical here. After rook e1 I might have time to go for this a5. Normally you can't always do this a5, but sometimes you can if white doesn't play too aggressively. And then put my bishop on a6. I'm not sure if he's planning to play e4 here. My guess is not. And I'm not sure if this a5 was correct, but if white loses some time, it tends to be an option. My next move, I want to go knight fd7, challenge this powerful knight. Didn't want to do it immediately because I was a little scared about allowing e4. Now it does look like I'm more or less in time, even though, ooh, I'm still not sure. After takes, I was more worried about takes and if knight takes d7, e4. The point being, after d takes e4, not sure if you guys are following, bishop takes e4 would be double attack against h7 and c8, but Shakhzala plays knight d3. I could go knight c6, then I have to calculate knight takes d5 though, which, first of all, I don't want to calculate. Secondly, it might be bad for me. So I will play, I don't know, I was gonna say bishop b7 and then knight c6, but that allows knight to b5 as well. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna play. Is this too artificial? It's kind of artificial. I'll go with this, but I'll be unhappy about it. How about that? Now he goes e4. That's another surprise. I'm doing a very bad job at guessing Shakhzala's moves, and his moves are not bad. Normally, at least if I can't guess them, I would hope they're terrible. But no, he's actually played interesting moves. Knight c6, I have to be very careful that nothing bad happens to me here, because I'm slightly underdeveloped on the chessboard. But now rook c8, it looks like I'm more or less in time to avoid the worst. Now there's no more tricks on this diagonal at least. Well, I have some jumps of my own, like knight b4, that I could one day consider. Queen d2 is a good move, getting out of the c file. And to make sense of my pieces, I should offer this exchange. Interesting game so far. I don't think I'm better at all. Rook d1 I could take, but here also looks sensible to put this knight here. Because if white doesn't have this breakthrough d4, d5, then he loses a lot of his dynamic chances in the position. Therefore, he correctly actually fights for getting that breakthrough in, once again by playing knight to f4. Shakhzala is a strong player. What can I do? Oh, I've also been extremely slow. Then it's time to speed up and make random moves, my specialty. Knight b4, a3. I can't say anything better than knight takes c3. If bc, knight d5, we have a weird position, but I thought it was kind of alright. And after a3, knight c3. Knight c3 is possible, and probably best, leading to rough equality, I would say. After bishop takes g2, king g2, then either knight d5 or knight back to c6. I'm not sure which is which. I'll make up my mind in time. But so far, yeah, he's playing excellent chess. Not very pleasant when they do that to me. He's playing all the best moves. What can I do? Knight g2, I'm not sure, but I thought king g2 was even stronger. But even here, after takes followed by, let's say, knight f4 and d5, white certainly not worse. Knight e4 I don't like on general grounds, same reasoning as earlier. I should really start speeding up a bit as well. Queen d7 rook fd8 looks like a fairly natural way to proceed to just bolster the d5 square. Shakhzala exchanges off a bunch of rooks, which actually, if he considers his position slightly worse, which I believe it is now, it's not the worst of strategies. Just simplify and get closer to a drawish position by just eliminating a lot of material. Knight f6 was bad. Now he can just take and go d5, and I believe I have almost nothing. I was hoping I'd be better there, but I really can't see how. Very good game by Shakhzala. Shak, is that a Basque thing? Could be, right? Not sure. I'm low on the clock, therefore this will not be a shock. That's rhyme. Then I'll speed up a bit. No, he doesn't go there. Okay, that is a surprise. Still not sure if it's a nice surprise, but it's a surprise. Yeah, status quo is unchanged. I'm slightly better. Now I'm much better. Because he blundered a knight in the heat of the battle. Shakhzala gives it all away. And I'm pretty good with extra pieces, therefore. He does resign. Excellent game by Shakhzala, pretty much up to this very moment. Here, after let's say knight b3, I'm not sure I have anything special. I'd continue playing, try to make something happen on the king side. But yeah, white is very much in the game. But of course, queen b3 was a big help. Thanks for the game. And let's play another one. Oh, somebody from Japan? Go, go, go 22? Is that because you're a Go player? We had a checkers player earlier. Now a Go player. Or, I don't know, maybe. I have no idea. What does a 22 stand for is another question. He goes knight f3. I never know what I'm supposed to do against knight f3. I switch around d5, c5, g6, whatever comes to mind. g6 came to mind, so I go with that. The general repertoire-wise, the problem with g6, if you can play the Grunfeld, is the move to e4, where a lot of people aren't really comfortable playing the modern. Well, c4 is of course legal, but here after bishop g7, if white goes d4, you go knight f6, and then you switch back to the Grunfeld by playing d5 next. Well, after knight c3, you go c5 or e5, but I prefer c5. And we're in a variation that is considered to be quite playable. My opinion is that g3 is the best move for white here, where you get some sort of symmetrical, Englishy position. I've played this plenty after castles. I've played a lot of bishop f5 here, which is a move I like. But for variety's sake, I'll play e6 in that one. In this one, followed by knight e7. There's a point to going first d6, then e6, because if you start with e6, then I believe white can go for some d4, leading to different types of positions. Well, here, the only problem is I don't really know what to do. But I have that problem often. Now my phone is ringing, I'm so sorry. Can't answer it. It's once again these people waiting for the live show to start in order to call me. No one ever calls me when there's no live show. Not so sure about rook b8. Or in general about plans here, which is a bit of a problem. In order to keep my Grandmaster license, I should probably study plans one day in these slow English positions. But since they're so slow and boring, I never get around to it. I have a feeling a5 is probably not what you're supposed to do, leaving this hole on a6. But now that I've done it, might as well pretend it's a virtue. The hole on b5, not on a6, sorry. But it's really not a virtue. And Go 22 tries to put his finger into the wound by going knight to b5. I'll go d5, then try to get my pieces set up, queen d7, rook d8, whatever. But I'm not very fond of my position. As usual, you're used to me whining about my position. It's not beyond repair yet or anything. Bishop c3. I'm curious if he wants to go bc, which makes some sense. Opening the b file for the rook. And yeah, changing the pawn structure quite a bit. But knight takes c3, of course, is the more natural choice. I'm also curious what I'm supposed to do. Really not very impressive, my handling of the position. Nah, I'll just do nothing for now. d4 or dc4 both feel a bit premature. So be careful with my weak and dark squares around my Mr. King when the position opens up. Goes back to b5, and why not? Do I take that? No, I'll do nothing. I might run out of patience eventually. And yeah, we've reached the run out of patience point where I snap and grab it. Oof, I'm reasonably weak in these slow maneuvering English games. Don't tell any future opponents. I really am. Getting outplayed here by Mr. Go-Go-22, which should not happen. Instead of 95, I think starting with f3 might have been even stronger, but 95 is not bad as well. The problem he might have is now if he goes, let's say, knight g4, which looks normal, I play king g7, that h5 is a threat which has to be addressed. And it is addressed by playing h4. I'm impressed with Mr. Go-Go. Like I said, I'm not particularly strong in these structures, but he's playing extremely well. Therefore, yeah, all power to him. Not all power, more power to him. All power would be too much. Do you really want one guy to have all the power? Not sure that made any sense. Time is running a bit low, that's why Mr. Go-Go-22 is trying to muddy the waters here by playing g4, which probably objectively is asking too much of his position. But of course, you can't just wait for the time to run out. Now tells me opponent disconnected. Let's hope he didn't disconnect, that would be a pity. But because his clock is also still running, I don't know. Looks like he realized the clock situation wasn't very good. Not sure what's happening here. Sorry, but it does seem like we're running out of time. And yeah, Mr. Go-Go-22 lost on time after an excellent game. And yeah, I have to read up on how to play these positions. I'm sure there's like books or people with a clue who've played those better. Or video series. Somebody recommend this. Maybe it's on Peter's or Nicolas' video series. I'm not sure. I should check it out. Right after playing Sancho Panza. Mr. Sancho. Are you there? Who's Sancho Panza? He's the dude with Don Quixote who was helping Don Quixote chase the windmills. Is that the guy? Is that what you want to name yourself after? Sancho Panza goes 1 e4. I shall play my favorite move in the whole wild world, e5. Not giving an inch. You want to put your pawn in the center? I can do the same thing. Bishop b5. I'll play a6, which is still my preference, even though many people? No, that sounds weird. Many people prefer the move knight f6 to Berlin. 5d3. Interestingly, I've noticed that Fabiano Caruana recently has played the move 5d3, which normally in Super Grandmaster Chess the reason not to do this was that you allow b5 and bishop c5. So I'm very curious why Caruana plays this and why nobody plays b5 bishop c5 against him. I hope we will one day find out. For now, both sides are making normal moves. This h6 versus castles is sort of an eternal debate in this type of positions. Me, I prefer to avoid getting pinned with bishop g5 here. Therefore, I like to start with h6, but that's more of a taste thing than an objective thing. You can very much allow the pin and be alright there as well. So now, yeah, the position resembles, I don't even know what it resembles, some slowish Italian game. The thing is, I don't really want to move my bishop before he's played knight b2, because after bishop b6 he could go bishop e3, and I'm not sure if I've lost time there. Well, I'm sure I have lost time, but I'm not sure I have to do that. So I'll try to find another half useful move, which rook e8 is, but rook e8 also does not fit in with every possible plan black has here. Like if you ever want to play f5 later, then rook e8 is not particularly useful, for example. For now, we've both put our knights on g3/g6, which is also fairly standard procedure for these types of positions. And we'll see what Sancho Panza does next. If he goes bishop e3, I'll probably take and go c5. d4 is another very common way to play. He goes a4, also perfectly natural. And generally, you don't want to put your bishop on b7 here, vacating the f5 square. And I have to parry the threat of ab5. So I'll go bishop e6. But even bishop e6, I'm not sure about. Actually, he's played well, maybe better than me. Or he has played better than me so far. Bishop e6, I thought he could even take and maintain a bit of pressure. Bishop c2. What to do? Maybe queen d7. Maybe not. That looks natural enough, just staring idly at the f5 square. And also, in some lines, bishop takes h3 becomes a real option. Yeah, the timing was probably bad because he can go d4 here. My instinct said start with c5, but I didn't do it. Now after d4, yeah, my timing has been way off. My pieces are a little clumsy. So I have to go c6, which is not the move I wanted to play. But in order to meet the threat of d5, winning material, didn't see what else to do. And yeah, things have gone wrong. Not horribly wrong, but slightly wrong. And that's normally all white needs to generate an initiative in this type of situation. It goes knight f5. I will panic and take here. My idea is if he goes cd, I have d5, which looks very strong. But I have a feeling he's not going to go cd, but knight takes d4. So far he's playing perfectly, by the way, Mr. Panza. Outplaying me big time. c5 was bad. I tilted. Don't like any option here. I'll go with fe. My point is, I'm not sure this works, but what I thought about was knight d6, rook d8, e5, knight takes e5, and I'm only slightly worse. But my position looks ugly enough that there could be even worse things happen to it. Queen takes d6 for starters as a move. Very, very dangerous. We'll see what Sancho Panza decides on so far. He's played perfect chess. Will he continue to do so? It would be heartbreaking, because he would probably crush me, lead me into one of these misery spirals I go on. He goes knight g3. He believes me, well, I don't know, that knight d6, rook d8, I was still alive. Well, he still has a fine position, but at least the immediate danger is gone. And I'll start working on activating my pieces a bit. Okay, these bishops have to be exchanged. Problem with these pawns is they control a lot of squares, but they're also weak. They require care all the time. So they're a mixed blessing. Okay, 5 is possible, but worst case scenario I can go rook b8 or... hang on, e5? What's that? If I take? I don't get it. Not sure what this is about. It's fine to activate that bishop, but I doubt it was worth such a powerful pawn. Yeah, that was helpful. Now I'm better. Yeah, white doesn't have a lot of compensation for the pawn even, because my knights are quite strong here. Sancho Panza resigns. A bit early to resign, rook g4, and the game continues. But of course his position had greatly decreased after he outplayed me in the first part of the game. And one key moment might be this one, where After knight takes d6, rook d8. I'm not sure. Feels very, very bad for black. But even if you go this, I have to take, and now something. Only white can be better here. Therefore, yeah, that was certainly a missed chance by Sancho Panza. But good game. Let's play another one of these games of chess that we all enjoy so much. What about a master FIDE of chess? I believe FIDE master is what they call it. World citizen. I'll play d4, continuing our Trompovsky studies, if the world citizen allows me. But now he's paid attention. He stops me from going bishop g5 by cunningly playing e6. What to do? I'm gonna have to play differently. c4, he goes c5. When d5 is the most critical move, but I have this weird reflex to normally not allow Bugoni structures, instead playing these kinds of things. And now we've transposed to a line that you typically get out of the Nimzo Indian move order. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, knight f3, c5, g3, cd, knight d4. And this position is on the board. I've played it a bit in the old days. Now knight f3 has fallen out of fashion, but not because of c5, but because of castles or b6 on move 4 in the Nimzo Indian. So you don't get to play this position as often, because in the move order, in the game, people normally do not play, what were they gonna say? Normally don't play bishop b4, but knight c6. Knight e4 is another very sharp old main line here. Queen c2 or queen to d3 are both legal. A-F-A-I-K. Forgot theory though, which hopefully will not come back to haunt me. Queen a5, bishop g2 were some very sharp lines. He takes here, and in such positions it looks like my pawn structure is rotten, which it is, but normally it's as big a factor that it's kind of hard for black to develop his queenside here. So I don't dislike this position. I'm not sure what the most precise way to handle my business is here. Rook b1 or rook d1 both look perfectly natural, putting some pressure on the queen side. It's not so easy for black to get the pieces out because d6 or b6 tend to drop material. It's still a highly complex position. Knight a5 could be a move going after the c4 pawn. But I tend to like white's chances here. He plays a6, but that does not contribute all that much towards the case, towards developing. His point is he wants to go queen c7, fair enough. Bishop f4, e5, knight f5, ef. No, it doesn't quite work yet. So I have to think of something else to do. Not my specialty, this thinking thing, as you probably know. I'll go here. Prepare c5 for a rainy day, but allowing... it was actually a bad move here because I allowed d6. Not ideal. And now he's managed to conclude his development and solve most of his problems. If not all his problems. Pretty much all his problems, actually. That's a pity. I don't like it when they solve all their problems. Let them have some problems. Doesn't have to be like crushing personal problems, but at least some problems so I can chip away. Well, now, yeah, I don't have anything special to work with, and I like having something special to work with. I'll attack this knight. Interesting position still. I'm not sure how to play it, frankly. Feeling I slightly got outplayed over the last couple moves. And I don't like that feeling either. I like them to have problems and me to outplay them. And by them I don't mean you, world citizen, I just mean opponents in general. And this is not what's happening in this game. That disappoints me. Plays rook f5, another good move. Can I make something happen here? Bishop h6, e4. I don't know. Doesn't really look like the correct direction for me to go, but for lack of better ideas, I'll fish for tricks over here. Not sure if all of this is healthy at all, frankly. Somehow didn't find time to throw in a little CB, which I would have liked to throw in. Wow, first of all, I'm very confused. I'll explain all my confusion in a minute. First of all, I didn't realize that rook takes g5 was legal. Sort of winning material, even though I guess you could argue that. Secondly, I didn't realize that I have 0 time left with all my great explanations. So I'll greatly speed up now. Whoa, all this talk. That's the problem. Once you have to switch to pre-moving, things can get out of hand very quickly. Yeah, this is hopeless, and he's gonna checkmate me. Very good game by World Citizen, and I get very rattled somewhere around here. Because I think yeah, probably my whole concept wasn't very sound. But what I was calculating was h4, h6, queen h5. And there, obviously, rook takes g5 doesn't make sense. But he has queen f7. And then I thought I'm smarter playing this, but rook takes g5, yeah, just escaped my attention. And it might not even be the best move, because here I realize that queen f7 is also asking some very unpleasant questions, because my bishop can't really retreat since I'm dropping the queen. So yeah, slow and bad. That's normally not the recipe to play a very good game by Mr. World Citizen. Let's play another game. What about Mr. Faki? Faki's been around for a while. I've never played Faki. I have a feeling I've seen his name plenty. Let's see what Faki has to offer. He goes 1d4. I will bring the knight out and play knight f6 as you do. Whoa, he's understood it's Trompovsky day today. And since we've seen so much to d5, let's play a different line. Let's play knight e4, see what Faki has to offer. Bishop f4 and c5. d5 is also perfectly fine here. But this is an old line, or well, it's not old. It's another main line. c3, knight f6. Now either d5 or knight d2. Faki goes knight d2. And here, queen d8 is the most solid move. Queen b6 is also very principled. But for mainly entertainment purposes, I will play this line, which looks completely ridiculous the first time you see it, but it actually has a reasonably solid positional core. Black loses a lot of time, but he does get the 2 bishops and a pretty solid pawn structure. So it is a playable line. However, it looks like Faki is a huge expert on all these things, something I cannot say for myself at all. He blitzes out stuff like knight g5, which is greatly intimidating to me. We'll see how he proceeds. Many options here. Queen f4, I was hoping I still had f6 or f5. Knight e4 is possible when I would probably go knight to c6 or once again knight to f5. f4 is probably a very sensible move, just reinforcing the e5 pawn. We'll see how it goes. Faki blitzing out his Trompovsky theory might just be big Trompovsky specialist and hasn't just signed up for Trompovsky Day. Not sure. Goes bishop d3 after prolonged thought, and greedy me really wants to go knight c6 and knight takes e5. Can I do that? I really want to. It's a bit crazy to pursue material gains without any pieces developed, really. But no pain, no pawn is what they say in the industry. I'm not sure they say We'll see how Faki decides to play. At least the tactical lines seem to not work for him, like queen f4, knight takes e5, knight takes f7 might look cute, but knight takes d3 followed by queen takes f4 is in my favor. So I can't see any immediate punishment. Probably, I don't know, queen somewhere, queen e3, knight e5, and knight h7 maybe? I'm not sure. Interesting position for sure. Queen h4 also could be possible. Faki taking his time here. Let's see what he comes up with. Does go queen f4, the most natural move. And yeah, knight takes e5 was the plan. Threatening to win his queen with knight d3 and queen f4. Which is the drawback of said move. Goes king b1, fair enough. I should probably play d6. Not sure if I should, but I will. Just to stop any knight takes f7 trickery. Now this mutual pin didn't seem beneficial to me anymore. But I blundered bishop b5 check, which is kind of bad news because my king has to go on a little excursion. And e7 is typically not the greatest of squares for a king in the middle game. However, as Steinitz said, who's been dead for many years, the king is a strong piece and can take care of itself. Not always true, but I guess you gotta stay optimistic in such sad times. Rook e5, Faki going for it. Oh wow, this actually works. I missed d queen b4 check. I thought this was just actionism. No such luck. And I lost, yeah? That's a pity. I'll keep asking questions. But now I'm pretty sure I lost. Knight e6, bishop e6, rook e6, let's say. Looks fairly crushing. Still, we'll see how it goes. On knight e6, I might have d e5, but you can start with rook e6. Yeah, that just looks crushing. Oh, Faki playing the immortal game here. The immortal Faki game. Point, of course, was that, well, I'm missing a lot of checks first. And yeah, he's playing the perfect move again. Very hard to win if they play all the perfect moves. Ah, this is precise again, ending the game. Yeah, nicely done. Some might say very nicely. Or even... Weird to take all this time after the perfect queen e4, obviously, intending bishop c4, which ends the game, to spend all this time. Now he goes queen d5. What is this? Trying to rub it in. Ah, because that's checkmate. Well, bishop c4, which most grandmasters, I believe, would have played instantly, was just winning the queen. What can I say? He's too strong. I'll allow him to checkmate me. King g6, bishop d3 was not an improvement, so I shall allow the rook e8 checkmate. Very nice game by Mr. Faki. Very impressive. Very, very impressive. And let's play somebody else. Oh boy. Why do I deserve this? Let's play Zaker. Is that how you pronounce it? Zaker? I don't know how to pronounce this. I'll continue our Trompovsky theme. Should have played 2 d5, I played solid. But at least we learned something. Zaker has not been following the theme of the show, and is surprised by the Trompovsky. Goes to g6, which, as far as it comes to when it comes to Trompovsky lines, I believe is one of the slightly shadier ones, because here white has a very easy plan, which leads to a very pleasant position. You go c4, knight c3, e3, knight e2, g3, bishop g2, and white just has a nice structure, only good pieces, while black has these double pawns. I think this is just an unpleasant line for black. These positions tend to be okay if black already had a stronghold in the center, pawn on d5, so after c4 you can go dc4, while here I have a feeling it's just unpleasant. Therefore, g6 not the most popular move in the Trompovsky, even though I'm sure some people would argue with me and say after c4 d5 is interesting or whatnot. In general, I don't think that's the way to make life easy in the Trump. He goes c5, going for immediate confrontation, which is kind of consistent, having played this opening. dc5 looked possible as well, but I didn't want to deal with any craziness, so knight e2 strikes me as a logical move. a6 looks very slow. I believe queen b6 would have been more consistent to keep the fire burning a little bit. Well, now I've managed to finish development and I've achieved the desired setup, giving me at least a small edge. Not sure how big it is, but it's pleasant. Zaker, taking a lot of time here, goes b5. Whoa, can you do that? I don't know, I guess I'll grab it. Don't see any particular tricks that justify it, but I've been wrong before, as probably most people watching this show, even watching the last two games, might have realized I'm not always right. Actually, I think I'm like right 46% of the time, slightly below average, but I do have a big enough ego to think that I'm right 100% of the time. Even though I just said I'm not. See, I'm not making sense. I'm punch drunk. Whenever I'm punch drunk, I stop making sense and I become more self-loathing. Not today though. I'm somehow have different stuff on my mind than losing blitz games today, which arguably is bad news as well. It means I stopped caring. But it did not send me into tilting spiral just yet. We managed to get there though. Still another game to play at the very least after this one. So you never know. Rest day in London today. You guys followed the London Chess Classic? I followed a bit, mainly my favorite player Anish Giri, who drew all his games so far. But there's others playing. Wesley So got a bit of a gift in the first round by Nakamura. But yeah, he's impressive. Quietly chipping away, winning points left and right. Now already 2,800 on the live rating list. Very impressive stuff by Mr. So, who looks poised. I don't know the system, but from what I understood, I believe Nakamura has to win and So not finish in the top 3 for anybody not named So and somebody named Nakamura to win the Grand Chess Tour, which looks unlikely. But Nakamura, after this horrible blunder in round number 1, he sort of made it a fight. He won 2 in a row against, who was it, Vichy and Topalov. Topalov in horrible shape. Then he almost beat Kramnik, so he's back up there in the race. But it does look like Wesley So will run away with this Grand Chess Tour. And then maybe set his sights on the next candidates tournament already. Who knows? But of course, there's many other names we should mention. Fabiano Caruana, the world's number 2, also keeps winning rating left and right. Kind of close to Mr. Magnus by now. He's, of course, the prime candidate if we talk about candidates. But this is still a long time away. I've been ignoring this game a bit. I am up a bunch of pawns and I do have decent control of the position. Queen e1 I thought was clever with a double attack against a5 and the e8 square. Zaker. Defended. Do you pronounce it like Acer, just with an extra Z? I don't know. Defended the e8 square, but not the a5 knight. Therefore, he resigns now. Let's play one last game before we all go home. Unless you're home already, then I don't know what you're gonna do. Probably. I'm not sure. I really do not know what you will do next. I can't speak for you. I can't take these decisions for you. And I apologize for that. Let's play another FIDE Master. I've already lost to FIDE Master today. Therefore, let's continue our war with FIDE Masters. This is Mr. Groove Chess, who once again fights against the Trumpovsky. People have realized I want to play the Trump. They aren't allowing me to. Plays d4, d6. You shall be punished by me occupying the center, Mr. Groove Chess. Normally, to be perfectly frank with you, my default move after d4, d6 is knight f3, to knight f3. I'm not an e4 player, but 2e4 always struck me as the most logical move. Here, instead of the normal knight f3, bishop c4, due to my lack of knowledge, I have decided to play this slightly weird system, putting my knight on e2, going g3, bishop g2, which Groove Chess seems to know everything about. That's the problem these days. Everybody knows everything about everything. So hard. He goes h5, which is logical, fighting against g4. Still, having already castled, this strikes me as a pretty extreme measure. Not sure, might be what all the cool kids do in this position. I'm not gonna claim that I'm heavily into details here, but it's still a daring move. It's a very normal idea in the Najdorf to fight against this knight on e2, which doesn't have a lot of places to go. But here it does strike me as a surprise. a5, another slight surprise. I thought his plan was to prepare b5 by going a6, b5. No such thing. And knight c1 might not be the greatest move mankind has ever seen, but I'm trying to use... Now he goes b5. I can't anticipate a single move. The usual problem. AB looks logical to give this rook some work. Now I have to think. Another problem of mine, which I'm sure you're familiar with. The thinking disability. How to handle this position. Maybe black is just alright. Yeah, I don't see anything overly tempting, to be honest with you. I could take d5, but that feels a bit anti-positional. Gives him a bunch of nice squares. So I do not want to do that. Knight d3 was my original intention, but now after b4, not quite sure what to do either. I'll do it for lack of better ideas, but it looks like his play has been fully justified so far. And once again, all this work to regroup my silly knight from e2 and have a new knight on e2. Well, at least he had to give up his bishop. Now I kind of like my position, to be honest with you. But the real fight is yet to come. This is like a two towers situation. Probably my Lord of the Rings references are a bit dated. For rook f8, I'm not sure. If I want to go c3, which I will play, but I'm not sure if I want to do it. Still, it looked like improving this horse was a priority here, or should be a priority. Therefore, I went with it. Still, it's a messy situation. I have some long-term assets, like the two bishops, like his slightly weakened king, but I have to be very alert about stuff like e d4 followed by knight c5, knight b3. Could go either way. I hope it goes my way. Rook b4. I've already used all my good b4 material before, therefore I'm not gonna go there now. I'll get the king out of this diagonal. Once again, not sure this was a priority. Maybe I should have thrown in de or something, but I did not. I want to keep this pawn. Messi did not win the Ballon d'Or this year. Instead, Cristiano Ronaldo got the honors. Bishop f8. You know what? Let's add fire to the flames. Yeah, I know that's not the expression, but I like this one better. Things keep getting messier. But I had all of this. I had anticipated all of this. I thought, because of my threat of bishop f6 followed by knight d5, I was doing alright here. Still, with such a king and with pieces all over the place, you can never be sure. Goes knight b3, I execute my idea. We'll see where that takes us. Queen c1 could be a funny little move trying to avoid losing material. But Groove Chess resigns. Now, his position is not good. I think it's a bit early to resign. After this, how do I win? I have many tempting options, but I didn't see a win. I can just take, sorry. I can just take here. And the knight covers a2. Yeah, that's easy enough. Anyway, tough fight against Mr. Groove Chess. Thank you for the game. Groove Chess. And, oops. Nah, let's not switch to my much younger, much more cheerful face from the old days just yet. Thank you guys for watching the show, first of all. Do I have anything in my highly popular and not at all tired old I'm sorry format? I'm sorry for the haircut. I really need to get a haircut, but it's so cold outside. When it's cold outside, it's kind of hard to motivate to get rid of all my hair. I'm sorry for not answering all your questions. I could see earlier a lot of opening questions. We might have to do another opening clinic soon. Sorry for my video series still not being out. I'm working on it as usual. And I'm sorry to myself for losing all these games. Let's answer some chat questions before I go away. Jan, do you think Topalov will stop playing after this tournament? Is a question by Xenon1840. No, I do not think he will stop playing after this tournament. He's been hit or miss for a while now. He's had a bunch of terrible tournaments, also a bunch of very good tournaments. He just got his second kid and he's constantly talking about retirement. So he's clearly not dedicated 100% to the cause. But I don't think he's going to quit. Why would he? However, his rating has gone down a bit. I'm not sure he's going to make the next Grand Chess Tour, and then it's going to depend on opportunities. Then what else is going on? A lot of action in the chat, so thank you for that. Not a lot of question. I can see on my screen currently one question I can answer. Kixi is asking, Jan, mind playing a game with me? I do mind, Kixi. We're at the end of the show and I also only play premium members. So if you want to partake, not only in my exciting shows, but lots of Banter Blitzes, I believe there's one later today by Chess Explained, and many others, then you should go to chess24.com, get a free account, then upgrade it to premium. It costs whatever it costs, I don't know, 10 euros a month. Maybe less, I honestly don't know. Do that, then you have access to all the great video series and you can participate in all the Banter Blitzes and crush me. Like I got crushed twice today. I don't enjoy that very much. But I guess life goes on. It's not about how often you get crushed, but about how many shows you keep doing after that. Is that the wisdom? No, I don't think that's it. Insanity is to keep doing the same thing, but expecting different results. That's what I'm doing. I always expect to crush all of you, and then I don't, and I go home, very sadly, as I will do now. Thanks for watching. Sorry for rambling forever. See you guys next time. Bye. Bye.